Have you checked all the boxes in life and still something is missing? In this episode, we chat with the beautiful Samantha Ruberto, coach and host of Hello Beautiful Podcast. She shares her amazing story of walking away from what society labels as stability, listening to her intuition, and taking the steps towards an amazing and fulfilling life. You don't want to miss this inspiring story. Welcome to the Abundance Hack Show, where we are inspiring you to ditch the outdated beliefs, release the blocks, and fully embrace your sovereignty so you can confidently expand to allow more love, joy, and aligned success in your life. I am Niaje, your conscious accountability partner, reminding you that abundance is your birthright. Hey M&Ms, thank you for tuning into the Abundance Hack Show. What are you manifesting in your life today? I am super excited about today's guest. It's Samantha Ruberto, and we connected and we just knew right away that we have a lot of memories to create. So I'm so excited for you guys to hear her amazing story. So before we get into who she is and what she does, Samantha, I want to ask you, what does abundance mean to you?
Abundance is possibility. Abundance is just knowing that anything is possible in the future and that at every single moment, there is that possibility for a miracle.
I love that. I ask this question to every guest, but no one's ever said miracle. It's so funny. No one's ever said miracle. And I love that because I do believe those who don't believe in magic or miracles never experience them.
You have to believe it to see it. So like the thing is, and this is the thing, so many people want to see it before they believe it, but it doesn't work like that. It's like you have to believe it first. And that is abundance. When you can tap into that, you are just like the world's your oyster.
Yes, I love it. I love it. And the world is your oyster. So I'm so excited to dive into your story, but I want to let you just tell us your story, because I love hearing people really express like their own journey. So tell us who you are and about how you got where you are now.
Definitely. So as of right now, I am a podcaster, a mindset coach, and I host exotic retreats to Morocco. So I have a really cool gig, and I look at my life and I sometimes have to pinch myself. I'm like, how is this my reality? Because it always wasn't this way. So I'll take you back. When I first graduated from school, I went to university, got a job, got into real estate, which I really, really loved. And I was really, really good at, but I reached a point in my career where I just wasn't happy. There was just something inside of me that just wasn't happy. And the funny thing is, Niaje, is that I was checking all of society's boxes. So I had everything that happiness should be. I had a beautiful home, a 5-year relationship, a successful career. We'd go on vacations. I don't even want to say travel. It was like vacation because it was like a week here, a couple weeks there, but definitely not the extent of traveling that was, in store for me at that point. And there was this specific moment that I'll never forget. So I was working in real estate and I was driving between appointments one day. And as I was driving, when you drive and you're sort of in the automatic and you get into this meditative state when you're doing these things on autopilot, it's like the brain waves just all of a sudden sink down into alpha, theta, like you're just so more relaxed, more in the zone. And this little voice spoke to me, but I almost want to say punched me. I was just like life isn't fun. And life should be fun. You're 27 years old. Is this how you want to live the rest of your life? And it was crystal clear. I heard it. I felt it. I was driving and it came out of the blue. And I was just like, and I stopped and I was just like, no. When I really slowed it down, because I couldn't avoid it. When something is your knowing is so true that you're like, there's no other way to go than to really be true with that question. So when I sat with it, it was like, this isn't it. And as you can imagine, as I was checking off society's boxes and I was looking, I'm like, this isn't the life I want to be living. There was a lot of letting go and a lot of doing. And it was a very challenging portion of my life because it was confusing in a sense because I didn't know what it meant or what was ahead for me, but I knew I had to listen. And I want to highlight that because so many people get to this point where they just they feel something and you don't know where you're going necessarily, but all it takes is just listening to the next step and taking the next step and staying in your truth and following that path. Anyways, long story short, I listened to that path. I pulled away. I tuned in, and I came to the realization that I needed to experience more, that I needed to experience the world, that I was from this beautiful small Canadian city, but all I really knew was what I knew. And I knew that there was a whole other world out there. And I'm like, you know what? I gotta go experience it. So I ended up breaking up with my boyfriend, getting my own place, taking like a sabbatical, I guess, off of work, and booking a one-way ticket to Thailand. So I grabbed a backpack, booked a one-way ticket, and I was just like, I'm off for an adventure, and I don't know where it's gonna lead me. Didn't plan anything when I went there. So it's like I just literally showed up and surrendered to the universe. And, you know, as terrifying as it was in the moment, like that first flight from Vancouver to Seattle, from Vancouver to Hong Kong, I cried when the wheels took off the tarmac because I was just so scared. Physiologically, my body was in such like, you're going into the unknown. This isn't safe. Like just so upset. But I'm so grateful that I did that. Once I landed, once I got into the groove, once I made my first friend, I was just like, I never looked back. And it's so important to just like, you just have to take that leap. Like fear will hold you back. There was a million reasons why I shouldn't have gone on that first trip. But because I just sort of took that leap and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go with it. My entire life opened up. So long story short, with the travel years, I ended up, that first trip with no plan, ended up leading to traveling to over 50 countries all over the world over a span of 5 years, and just surrendering to adventure and immersing myself in life and following, like learning how to listen and follow my intuition on the way. So that's like that period of my life, which was pretty cool. I feel like travel is such a important aspect of life, and just like not even traveling around the world, but just immersing yourself in new experiences, trying new things, you know, going to a new class, like just like immersing yourself in new. It's like there's so much growth to be had when you do. And I look back and I'm just forever grateful for that. So I've been I don't want to say all over the world because I've only been to like 50 something countries and there's 195 places to go. It's really funny. It's like the more you travel, the more you realize like, oh my God, I have so much more to experience and see. It's almost like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know anything at all. Right. And, so the traveling was amazing. It opened me up in in so many different ways, learned so many important life lessons. But the biggest lesson I would say is that, and it actually came when I would come back home, because I'd go to, you know, Iceland, Colombia, Australia, Cambodia, Morocco, wherever in the world. And there'd be so many different ways of living, different languages, different religions, different foods, different culture, different the way people dress. And I'd come back home and I realized I started looking at I call it the absolute reality, like the way that I thought was right before. And I'm like, oh my God, none of this really exists. Like, in a sense, it's not as concrete as I once thought it was. I'm like, there's so many different ways to live your life. Like the 9 to 5 doesn't have to be the 9 to 5 if I don't want it, even though I was told my whole life, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this. I'm like, there's a million different ways to live your life, and life is art. It's like, what do I want my masterpiece to be? So that was an interesting time, sort of a dark night of the soul period. I don't know if, yeah. So it was like where your world sort of shattered and you're like, oh my God, what is real? So very confusing time. But another one thing is that anytime there's confusion, it's like when there's a breakdown, you're on the brink of a breakthrough. So like, it's just like that confusing time of like questioning, of not being sure, of like just being like, you know, like what isn't, being super, super curious of my truth and asking questions and seeking answers and just continuing to go through that. I am so grateful because the breakthrough came, the realization came, and it's like, in life completely blossomed from there. So I just, through that period of personal growth, learned so many different tools, different techniques, from a number of different modalities, you know, whether it's like yoga, whether it's journaling, whether it's meditation, whether it's breath work, sound healing, ecstatic dance and movement, just so many different like experiences all around. And the amount of growth, it just accelerated my process. And I look back and I'm like, I think of the girl who took that first flight, the girl who was in that car, who just thought life isn't fun and life's supposed to be fun. And I'm like, she had so much courage to follow her path. And I honor her so much for what that took, because it got me here. And like, I feel so blessed in this moment. I look around at my life and I realize I created this. And I have control to create what I want. And life is art and it is beautiful. And, you can dye your hair purple. I can put red lips on my, on my lips, and just like literally show up however the F I want. And that is so liberating. So, yeah, that's like a bit. And then through, like, just to sort of wrap it up to how I got into what I'm doing now, through journaling one day about 2 years ago, I do a technique called morning pages. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way. It's fantastic. And while I was doing morning pages one day, this one line came out in my journal. It said, "You will start a mindfulness brand." And at the time, like, I was traveling, I'm doing my thing, but like a mindfulness brand, like, yes, I'm into these things, but I never thought about starting and launching my own brand. And I was like, that's weird. Like, that's interesting. And, and so I left it. And about a month later, the same one line came up: "You will start a mindfulness brand." So I'm like, oh, there it is again. So for me, it was like, that was the universe talking to me. So I started paying attention to the clues that the universe was giving me. And little by little, it was lining me up to get into the field and to get into everything I'm doing now. And all I had to do is trust the process and surrender to the timing of everything. And again, I look back at the girl who followed like that little breadcrumb and, and took the chance to walk away from a secure thing, because I was selling real estate still at the time when I was traveling. I walked away from a secure thing to create space to start a mindfulness brand, even though I didn't know what that looked like. So, and here we are now. I'm like, I'm over a year into it, loving my life and so incredibly happy.
Yeah. And one of the things that I love that you didn't mention is the retreats in Morocco that you do. So when people look at security, what society says security looks like, you had this secure career and a secure relationship. But if you are willing to walk away to see what is possible, now you're traveling the world, 50 countries, and doing retreats in Morocco. So it's like, are you willing to chance like giving up that security for something that's so amazing and magical?
Totally. And it's so amazing and magical. And that's what life should be. Like there is this magic in life. And I mean, it's not always a bouquet of roses. It's not always like, lollipops and unicorns and like beauty. Like, it's not always like, just the high. Like, it's beautiful in the lows as well. So just like, all in all, when you look at the magic that is literally like here for us right now, it's like we're blessed, and anything could be possible depending on what you put out there.
Yes, I love it. I love it. So I want to take a step back and talk about, you said you tuned in. So for someone who's listening that doesn't understand what that means, like, they're like, okay, I want to tune in because I've checked all the boxes. I have the career, I have the relationship, but something's still missing. There's something still inside of me that doesn't feel completely fulfilled, completely happy. So I know there's different healing modalities, but how would you explain what tuning in looks like for you?
So tuning in for me, or for someone listening. So tuning in is that hunch you get. It's like a hunch. It's an initial like, and you think about something. And I always say like this, I actually had a mantra. What was it? Oh, it'll come to me. But 2 years ago, I developed this honor life. So that was my mantra for my year in 2018. And that was actually to help me tune in more. So tuning in is that hunch you get where you're like, And then about 3 seconds later, and you think something and you feel your energy elevated. And then 3 seconds later, the analytical mind jumps in and then talks you out of the thing and kind of pulls you back. So whether it's like, you think you see somebody, like, you're in a coffee shop and there's somebody you walk by and you're like, is that is that whatever, Jane from like high school? And then all of a sudden you're like, no, it's not her. Like, you get this excitement and then you talk yourself out, tuning in. And what my thing was, honoring life is realizing what's happening, having the awareness to the hunch, acknowledging the resistance to it, and then honoring it anyways, and doing that thing. Because like worst case scenario, it's like, so it's not going to be like Jane or whatever her name is, like it's like you go up, hey, like, is this you? And it's not. It's like no harm, no foul. But if it is, there's an opportunity to just like reconnect with somebody, or you don't really know like where, even if it isn't her, where the conversation could go. So tuning in is listening and giving space to that little voice within you to come out and to speak. And the more that you do it, the more space that you give it, the more clear the communication is going to be and direct the messages are going to be. And you're just going to be able to tap into this magical space of flow and guidance. So another way that I love to tune in to it and sort of hear from it is through journaling. So I am a huge advocate of journaling. I journal every single day. All of my clients, I'm like, you are going to love journaling by the end of our things. It is such a powerful tool to speak to your inner, inner consciousness, to the divine, to the universe, whatever you need. You can get very powerful answers if you ask the right questions, during that technique and practice.
Yes, I love it. I'm a huge advocate for journaling as well. And I did look up morning pages when you mentioned it the first time. I did look it up and I started writing like 3 pages every morning. And usually I've only been doing it for like a week or so, but when the days where I'm just like, I have nothing to write is the days when I'm digging a little deeper and I'm uncovering stuff that probably needed to be uncovered. So yeah, I highly recommend it. I didn't buy the book. I read a bunch of reviews on the book, The Artist's Way.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I didn't buy the book, but I just started doing the 3 pages every morning.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. And when the timing's right, you'll be called, you'll do the book. Like Julia Cameron it's a classic. I think she wrote the book maybe 30 years ago and it's still so relevant. I was actually on a call, like a webinar call with her about a month and a half ago, or conference call. And she was just unbelievable. Like, like someone who's just so eccentric and they're true, like she is a true artist. I look at her and the way that she dresses, the way that she speaks, everything about her was so her, and it just radiated. I was just like, I am like, you are, a fairy godmother of creativity is sort of the way I look at her. But morning pages, and to sort of, highlight your point, like it kind of gets you to dig deeper and dig deeper. We have between 60 and 80,000 thoughts every single day that kind of pop up in our mind. So imagine your phone going off like ping, 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 80,000 times, because that's what's actually happening to your mind every day, over and over and over and over again. And morning pages really helps sort of start decluttering that area, like that part of our life, like just starts creating space within your mind so that there's not as many thoughts. So you're starting to sort of go through some of the boxes and get rid of the stuff that doesn't serve you, and it's a very powerful technique. So I'm happy to hear that you're doing it.
Yeah, it's been really, really good. So I want to talk about fear. So you said that when you got on that plane, that first flight from where you were to Hong Kong, you literally like felt the fear, like you were scared, you felt the fear in your body, but you did it anyway. So a lot of people are paralyzed by fear. So what would you say would be how you overcame that fear to still, I don't want to say overcame, work through it and proceeded anyway, despite the fear. So can you speak to that?
Definitely. So, and I'll tell you another story, a travel story, actually. And I haven't shared this one before, but when I was on my travels, I promised myself that I would just do it. Like, just like my mantra is almost like, just book the ticket and go, just do it and say yes to everything. So even if it scares you, just do it.
If you were looking for a sign, here it is. This is your reminder to not settle, to know your worth, and to follow your bliss. This is a reminder to maintain alignment and show up in your fullest expression. Abundant and Aligned Society is an accountability program to remind you that you are a powerful being and you deserve to live the life you truly desire. Go to niaje.com/society to join in on the magic, because life is meant to be abundant.
When I was in Macau, China, China is sort of like the Vegas of China. It's really, really cool. Like if you Google it, it's got like all the same hotels. It's like all like casinos, flashing lights, like it's happening. But they also have the world's highest, I believe it's the number 1 or number 2 bungee jump in the world. So yeah, it's crazy. It's 73 stories, I want to say, high. And when I went there, before I went to Macau, I knew that that was there. And I'm like, you know what? I'm terrified of heights. I'm going to jump off that building. So I'm like, great, good idea, right? Like, I'm terrified of heights. I'm going to jump off the highest building in the world that I can actually jump off. And so I went with one of my dear friends who lived in Hong Kong, and we went there for the day. And as I like pulled in on the ferry and I saw how high it was, I was just like, there's no way. There's no way. Like, that is a freaking high tower. There's no way. So we spent the whole day going all out, out and about, getting pastries, going shopping, checking out whatever the tourist sites for Macau. But it was in the back of my mind. And I was just like, nope, not ready to go, pushing off. Like, there's no way. There's no way. But I was sort of like back and forth. Like, there's this fear, but then there's the part of me that wants to overcome the fear. So at the end of the day, before we're heading back, he's like, Sam, we've been back and forth all day. Like, this is your chance. So I looked, I'm like, you know what, James, let's just go. So at least I know that I went there with good intention, but I'm not going to do it. So we went there, we pulled up, and it's like, it is freaking high. Like, I don't even know, like, you imagine yourself up like a 73-story building. Like, that is a tall tower. So we just got to the bottom of this tower. I'm looking up and I'm like, I'm just going to go in. I'm just going to inquire, but I'm not going to do it. So we went in, we inquired, and then he told me everything. And I look at him, I said, you know what? I'm just going to sign up and do it. Like, I'm going to do it. It was like a kind of expensive too. It was like $600 or something. It was a lot. It was an investment, but I'm like, I'm going to do it just to do it. But then I'm not going to do it. Like, I'm just going to take that next steps. And I paid for it. I'm like, and then I'll go up. So at least I can see, we can go to the top, and then we can just take the elevator back down. So we got to the top, and you can imagine, like, as I was going up the elevator, my whole physiological response, like, I was just on the elevator nervous. And then it hit me again when you're going up an elevator, and then all of a sudden it goes to windows. Like, when you get to a certain height and it's just windows and you see how high you are, you're like, no way. So you go up and it opens, and I was almost like, I couldn't get off the elevator. It's like, come on, get off. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to get off. We're just going to go, like, whatever. Just going to go check it out and check out the view. So then I looked at him. I'm like, I just need a glass of wine. So we had a glass of wine. And about 10 minutes later, the guy came over. 15 minutes later, he's like, are you Samantha? I said, yes. He's like, will you come with me? I said, you know what? I just want you to know I'm not going to do this, but I'll come with you. And so he's like, okay. So then I went with him, and then he's like, and then he just started like, kind of like showing me everything. I'm like, I'll just put on the stuff. I said, but I'm not going to do it. So the whole time it was like, but I'm just going to do this, but I'm not going to do it. So it was like this, like back and forth with my amygdala. Anyways, we can talk more about that in a second. So I put on the stuff, and I remember I had my wine there. Like, I'm drinking my wine to take the edge off. And then I'm like, and then I went to them, like, I'll just look at the ledge. Like, I'll just look out the window, but I'm not going to. And then the guys came, like, hey, you ready? Like, we're going to hook you up. I said, fine, you can hook me up. I'll stand at the edge, but I'm not going to jump. And so they hooked me up. And there I was at the edge, and I couldn't believe it. Again, like, imagine I'm at the edge. It's super windy. There's like, you can hear all the noise from the world below you. I'm looking down at my fear. People are like ants. Cars are like ants. Like, I'm looking down, and there's like little dots of like cars driving around. I'm just like, there's no effing way. Like, there's no way. And all of a sudden they were just like, 1, 2, 3. And like, everything in my body was holding me back. And I just jumped. And as I fell, and it wasn't a bungee jump, so this was a sky jump. So I didn't go head first. I did the one where you could like, you basically, it's the equivalent of like jumping off of a building. Like I like jumped and I could feel the sensations of like, oh my God, what did I just do? Like you just jumped off the ledge of a building, like you're gonna die, like freaking out. And there's a video like, like I'm screaming. And it was like, and I was just looking around and life was just like, I was so in the moment. It was such an elated moment. But when I landed and my feet hit the ground, all of a sudden I had a rush like you couldn't imagine. Like just like every single cell in my body was vibrating at like the ultimate like vibration. It was just like, holy shit, I'm alive. I just conquered like my biggest fear in the biggest way possible. And as you can imagine, I was just like freaking out, biggest smile, probably like, I don't think I cried, but I was just like screaming, so alive. And what I wanted to share was with the amygdala. So your amygdala, the part of the brain, that's the part that kind of keeps you safe. So it's like you like often if I say like, oh, I'm going to go jump off the building and do it, it's like, there's no way. But when you do things in little steps and you kind of trick your amygdala that way, it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to do this. And then I'm still safe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to take this next step. Okay, I'm still safe. Okay, I'm just going to do this next step. Okay, I'm still safe. Sometimes that's the way you go about it. And before you know it, you've taken the biggest leap of faith of your life. And you found out like you've landed, you've actually flown. Like I had the experience of what it was to physically fly in that moment. And that experience will stay with me the rest of my life. That experience shaped and shifted the woman who I became. Like that just jumping off a building and going through that has completely altered my destiny. So for somebody listening who has that fear, who has that thing within them, just take the next step and follow your path. Like, you know what you're meant to do because you have a totally new destiny, a totally new life that is waiting for you. To have the courage, to listen to the little voice like I had in the car, to do what you have to do to go there. It's your life purpose.
I literally have chills like as you share that story, and I love it so much. I think that sometimes people set these really huge goals and then they have analysis paralysis and they don't move forward. So I love that you take one little step, one little step, one little step, because it breaks it down. There's that really weird saying, but it's so fitting. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And I always say, like, who came up with this and who eats elephants?
It's like, where did this come from?
Exactly. But it's very fitting, like just taking those little steps. And there's a really amazing TED Talk. I want to say it's called 100 Days of Rejection. But it gives you 100 exercises. Like the guy who did the talk has a program where they give you 100 exercises to do to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. So doing little things every day that's uncomfortable, because it's training your brain to say you are safe, you can take chances, you can take risks. And just, I mean, the benefits from that are life-changing.
Totally. And then and at the end of the day, like we all know, like when you know you want to do something, it's like that's your intuition actually speaking to you. Like you're meant to do things. We're all here for a big purpose. We're all here to live our most fulfilled life. But it's up to us to take those baby steps in the right direction.
Yeah. And I would imagine that you're surrounded by super supportive people. But I want to ask, from your real estate days to traveling the world and taking these big risks, how did it affect your friendships and relationships?
So the funny thing is that when I first went to go travel, majority of people in my life were like, what are you doing? You're going to get, like, there was so much of their own fear that came up. You're going to get robbed. You're going to get kidnapped. Like, it's not safe. And like, I heard all of those things, but I went and did it anyways. So, like I really had a firm boundary around what was important to me. And I knew like so deeply that this is what my soul needed, that it didn't matter what anybody else was going to say. Like, it was between like it was me and me, like me in the mirror, looking at the mirror and be like, this is your life. Like you've got to do this for yourself. And no matter the criticism or, you know, the comments or the you shoulds from everybody, I was like, I'm just going to go do it. And as I continued, like I went on the first trip and then I came home, then some people were like, wow, that's so cool. But then I still had some rejection. Oh, you shouldn't do that. And then, you know, and I came back, and essentially anytime anybody has like, not backlash, but like anything to really say, that it's their own fear projected on your situation. It has nothing to do with you. It's just that their own fears are coming up. It's uncomfortable for them. So then they put it out that way. But it's up to us whether we're actually going to, you know, take that and internalize it and have it affect our decisions, or just hear it for the truth that it is, which is that, you know, friend, your mother, your coworker just wants to keep themselves safe, and, you know, and keep you safe. Like it's coming from a place of love, but you don't have to listen. So the more I did that, the more I kind of stepped in and honored my own truth, the more people around me looked and they were like, wow, like, how are you living this life? How are you doing these things? And it all just came to like the fact that I was tuning into my intuition. I was listening to, like, I had my map within and I'm following it. Like it's clear of what the next step to take. And so, it's gotten better over the years. There's a bit less criticism, but I totally understand, like when people are on the brink of change or wanting to do something new, wanting to try something new, wanting to go on a travel trip around the world, or, you know, quit their job and do something else that may not have as much security. You know, it can be, you know, it's already a scary thing, but then when you have the added pressure of the people around you, it's like, it just intensifies the fear a little bit. But it's so important just to like tune into yourself, check in, and just take those baby steps, because like at the end of the day, those same people, like now it's the same people who said you shouldn't, no, what are you doing, who are like like the ones who are like, I wish I could, I want to, how can I? And I'm in a position to be able to host a retreat in Morocco and be a bridge to be like, you want to come on this experience? Come with me. Like, let's go. Let me show you, like, let me show the way, and let's go, like, light up your life.
I love it. I love it. So what is your favorite country that you visited?
So my favorite countries, it's so hard to say, because I mean, there's so many amazing places. I love Indonesia. I love Bali. Bali is just a very special place, especially so it's in Indonesia, the island of Bali, but especially for creatives and people who, you know, it's sort of like an epicenter of creatives from all over the world who land in Bali, who exchange ideas, who try different things, who, you know, support each other in different ways. And it's just such a beautiful island spiritually as well. That I think Indonesia would be my favorite. But I also I'm such a Paris girl. I'm one of those people who just like, I love Paris. There's a je ne sais quoi factor, and the beauty and the effortless elegance and, you know, the cafes and everything about, you know, Paris is beautiful. Morocco, again, one of my favorites. It's just so exotic and charming, and it's just sensory overload. Like you go to Morocco and you feel like you're like, it's like Aladdin. Like it's literally like the cartoon. You imagine Aladdin in the markets and whatnot. It's the exact same as that. And it's just like sensory overload. So like the smells, the tastes, the sights, the noises, the sounds, it's just like, it's so chaotic that it just like literally is just so much chaos that you're so immersed and present in the present moment of that world that like it's totally probably the most magical place is Morocco. So
I love it. I love it. So I've been to Paris, but I haven't been to Bali, but Bali's actually top on my list. And I haven't been to Morocco, but we are totally making a retreat happen. Me play some sound bowls.
Yes, come. I can't wait. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So what are your top 3 tips for living an abundant life?
So my top 3 tips for living an abundant life, like number 1, I've covered it this entire, you know, conversation, is listen to your intuition. Trust your gut, learn to trust yourself, like learn to listen to that little voice. So that would be tip number 1. Tip number 2, your morning rituals. So how you start your day is so important for like how the day unfolds. And essentially your morning, like your bookends the day, the morning and the evening rituals are super, super important, because whatever you do there, you're sort of setting yourself up for the middle. And evening rituals are really important because you're priming yourself to go into your dream state, to go deeper into the subconscious, to get answers to questions you might have from like different levels of consciousness. So having really good supportive routines. And number 3, I would say, invest in yourself. So for me, the biggest growth came when I invested in travel. Like for me, travel wasn't just like I'm going on vacation. For me, I approached it as like it's an investment in the way that I see the world and experience the world. And this is education. So that was that. About 2 years ago, I started investing, maybe 3 years ago, heavily into personal development. So I went to all of the top, like I went to the Tony Robbins seminar. I've been to Robin Sharma. I've been to a number of Mind Valley events. Like I've gone to Burning Man. I've done, a number of Vipassanas. Like I invested in personal experiences at a personal development level. And then in the past 2 years, I've invested in personal coaches. So finding mentors and coaches who are where I want to be and who can help me take the steps and sort of clear the path and energetically hold my hand to move through the fear and to take the steps that are going to get me to where I want to go. So those are probably my 3 biggest hacks to an abundant life.
I love it. I love it. And we actually connected in a coaching program. So I think that one of the best things about group coaching is you connect with like-minded individuals, and you never know where those relationships and connections can lead. So obviously I'm a coach myself, so I'm a huge advocate for coaching, but
Yeah.
I say the best investment you can make is in yourself. So yeah, and travel, you think that you're learning about the country, but you're actually learning about yourself. It's uncovering parts of
Totally.
you that you didn't even know was there.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. You only know what you know. Like at the end of the day, we only know what we know. And same thing, like when I had that realization, when I was like, there's a whole world out there. Like I'm in my little safe Canadian city, but like what else? And and just getting curious. It's like when you immerse yourself in experience, you're going to get wisdom. So there's 2 types of knowledge. There's wisdom, and then there's like that intellectual knowledge. Intellectual knowledge will come from books, will come from, listening to podcasts, will come from and you can learn a lot from research and that type of thing. It can sort of set the stage to where you are, but nothing replaces experience. There's just something about going through a moment fully, like with all of your senses, like the moment my leap of faith off of that building, no textbook could teach me that. No textbook could give me that life lesson of like having to go through that to get on the other side of it. And that knowing, like I have chills right now. Like that was maybe 5.5 years ago on my journey. And I'm right now chills, like goosebumps to the deep wisdom that moment gave me. And it kind of ties back into how I started and said, like every moment, abundance is the fact that every moment is a possibility of a miracle. Like that moment was a miracle in my life. This moment is a miracle in our life. Like in this moment, in this conversation, we don't know. And the beautiful thing I love about podcasting, I'm a podcaster too. The beautiful thing is that when you put this out to the world, you don't necessarily know where it's going to land, but where it lands is exactly to the person that needs to hear the message, So it's that's a miracle.
Mm-hmm. All the chills.
I know we're vibing really high over here.
I love it. I love it. So tell them about your podcast. I actually just did an interview with her on her podcast. So do you want to share that information where they can check you out?
Definitely. So my podcast is called Hello Beautiful, but it's spelled BEYOUTIFUL. So be your beautiful self, like be you and embrace your uniqueness fully, because when you do, it's like that really is when we're the most beautiful. So it's a women's empowerment platform, and I release weekly episodes every single Thursday, speaking to amazing women like you. And We go into a bit of the vulnerable stories. So I like to take empowered women and go into the stuff like the challenging times and the lessons learned through those experiences. And when you do that and you have those conversations about moments in your life that might have not been the easiest, it really just sets the stage to show that like the truth of impermanence and how everything is changing. And yes, things were really, really, really hard for me then in that moment, but I got through it. And through that, I learned all of these life lessons. And we make sure every single episode, there's so many life lessons. And then you get to see that. So, I have so many people who reach out and just say like, I was going through this scenario or this, and you have no idea how much that helped me. And then we share like so many incredible modalities. We talked about sound healing, which was incredible. Some episodes are about breath work and other episodes are about Vipassana. So it really is an educational space just to open your mind to the world of, different modalities and possibilities out there.
I love it. I love it. And I've been listening. So I listened to your 1 year one. I listened to it yesterday, actually, the 1 year anniversary. Nice. Yeah. So it's really amazing. Besides the podcast, where can people find you online?
So you can find me on samantharuberto.com. That's my website. You can find me on Instagram. My handles are at Samantha Ruberto, and it's RUBERTO. Some people write ROB and they can't find me. Or the at Hello Beautiful Podcast. You can find me there. And definitely don't be shy. Reach out. Let me know if you've tuned in. I would love to hear from you. It's just, I love the connection. Like for me, the podcasting journey and even these experiences, it's all about connection. It's the fact that when you put it out there, you don't know who's going to listen or where it's going to go, or, the ripple effect of love and kindness and possibility and abundance that can come from literally one conversation or one thought or one thing. Like the details matter in life. And I'm just really excited to see where everything blossoms from here.
Yes, I love it. I love everything that you're doing. I'm so excited to see what you create from here. And I am so grateful that we connected. So I feel like if nothing else comes out of my coaching program, I'm glad that I met you.
Well, I'm glad I met you too.
Yeah. And I love your podcast. And there was something that you said yesterday in the podcast about there are days where you don't feel like showing up, but you have to still show up. And I think that, I know we have to wrap it up soon, but I think this is a really important point, especially for where I am in my journey. I think that in the past, I'm from New York. So like New Yorkers go, go, go. It's just like push through, survival of the fittest, go. But they teach you to ignore your feelings because you have to show up. What I'm learning now is to still honor my feelings and still show up. And it's such a powerful difference. And I love that, in your podcast, you shared that vulnerability, because you don't have to suppress or like sweep your feelings under the rug in order to show up. You can feel the feels and show up and say, hey, I'm not having a great day today. I am vulnerable. I am raw from all of the kicks that life is throwing at me, but I'm here, and I think that's really, really beautiful.
And that's exactly what it is that it's beautiful. It's not even coming from it like, like it's honoring how you feel, but not even from like a disempowered place. Like, hey, I'm not feeling good. Like if you were to ask me, Sam, how are you? Like on the podcast, and if I'm not good in this moment, I would be like, you know what? I'm not really good right now, but let's do it. But I would honor that. And I would talk about it because there's nothing wrong with it. Like it is just as valid as like challenging times are just as valid as the good times too. And when you learn to like balance them out and just sort of like just be in the experience, it's like all of a sudden it's like it's so much more powerful.
Yes, I love it.
When you push away parts of yourself, like that's the thing, when you push away parts of yourself, you're giving away some of your energy. But when you embrace every single part, every single aspect, every single moment, even of our past. Like a lot of people struggle with moments of their past, but when you embrace those, it's like you're actually bringing more power to you and more energy to your being. And when you do that, that's really when miracles happen.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. This has been amazing. And I know that whoever this is meant to land for is going to find so much value in this. And I hope that they take that chance, go travel, go jump off of a building.
Like, this is my advice. Like, go travel, go jump off buildings. Like, this is what I'm telling people to do. It's like, disclaimer. Yeah.
No, but it's so good because there's so many things, like our inner being knows what's best for us and what's going to, bring us to that growth edge and then take us, to that next level. So I love it. I absolutely love it. Thank you so much. Such a huge fan of everything that you're creating, and I look forward to creating with you and going to Morocco.
Totally. So listen, you guys, if you've ever want to come to Morocco, it's like you got to keep it on your radar. Once this coronavirus thing settles down, we're going to have a retreat. We go to Marrakesh, like I said, one of the most magical cities in the world, and then out to the Sahara Desert, and it's going to be amazing.
Yes, I look forward to it. All right, M&Ms, until next time, be decadent. Thank you for tuning in to the Abundance Hack Show. I would love to hear from you. Leave your comments and questions, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our yummy episodes. Every time you leave a 5-star rating or review, I do my happy dance.